One of the most common questions that I often get is, Charlie, how do I find my soulmate? Finding a soulmate is easy, for we all have a soul, and you simply bond with your soul. But I know what you're thinking. You are looking for a soulmate as another person outside of you. And the reason why we use the word soulmate, though the word has been overused, is because what we are looking for truly is someone who sees us for beyond just who we are in the physical world and truly sees into our soul. For our soul has a direct connection to the greater universe. And so, the first thing we must do if we're looking for a soulmate is to begin to get to know our soul. Oftentimes, though, you might say, well, I'm not looking to get to know my soul. I know myself. I'm looking for someone else, someone out there. Which is true. But if you are living your life outside in, you will never be satisfied. That's one aspect of it. And there's many aspects to finding your soulmate. The first one is truly in addressing your soul connection. See, when others say focus on you, it can be very difficult because you might be wanting anything but focusing on you. What you're looking for is someone out there to satisfy what you cannot give to yourself, which is that deep inner love. And not just a love, but a sense of completion. Often we look at people around us to give us a sense of completion, to give us a sense of approval for who we are, who we want to be. Then there is the physical aspect of simply looking for companionship, for that connection, for that physical, emotional connection. And there's nothing wrong with that, for we all are physical beings, and that we are more than physical beings. And by physical beings, I mean we are not just our body and flesh, but also our thoughts and emotions. These needs are very valuable. However, many of us have been trained not to really understand how our needs work, how to satisfy those needs, and then how to connect with others in a way where we are offering value and sharing value. You might have heard this from your friends, especially your girlfriends, where they say, well, I give a lot, and I've given so much, and I've stopped giving to others. Now I'm turning to myself. The problem is not with the giving. The problem is with who you are giving to. For when we are unplugged from the true source of self, when we have been misguided because our thoughts and our emotions are very easily manipulated, and they've been manipulated from a very young age by those around us, for better or worse, then we become trained. So then when we choose, we are not choosing based on intuition and a higher knowing. We are choosing based on familiar emotions that we are reacting to. Which is why oftentimes, especially when we are in our most feminine and our most reactive emotional state, we will choose mates that we are reacting to emotionally, thinking that they might be our soulmate, our higher self, when in turn we're simply reacting to familiar emotions. And so why we use the word soulmate is that because, again, we are looking for someone who looks deeply within us and truly connects with us, that sees beyond that programming, that truly sees the light that we have to offer. However, for some of us, one might have to dig in a little bit deep to find that light, but we want them to do the work because it's much tougher for us to do the work. It is much tougher for us to find that soul connection. Because something very powerful does when we connect to that soul, when we connect to that higher being, and we practice this connection. For one great way to do this, well, the only way that you can really get there is by finding a certain balance in your physical world, in your thoughts, emotions, and sensations. For you have physical needs, you have mental needs, you have emotional needs. And then you have much, much deeper needs, which is, let's say, what a soulmate would provide that would be different from a friend, or simply someone that you're maybe occasionally seeing. You want that deep, deep connection. But first and foremost, you must make that deep connection with you. Now, you might say, well, that could take a long time. I'm looking for someone now. So, let's start now. You were never told this in your physics class, but you are a magnet. You are an electromagnetic field. For every atom has an electromagnetic field, and so do you. However, a human being's electromagnetic field is very powerful and unique, for we are made up of different aspects of us. Those aspects are the mental processes, the thoughts, the emotions, the behaviors, and then our spirit self, which is something that still fascinates and baffles us. Sometimes we make this connection, but we don't. There are so many different layers to us. We are not just in this earth space, we are in the galactic space. And so as magnetic beings, we are constantly drawing and repelling things from us. So when you are looking for a soulmate, when you are truly looking for this powerful, deep connection, and trust me, I understand, and I have found connections with my soulmates, and it's been really, really incredible, and they can be very long-lasting. However, you must understand that you are a magnet. As a magnet, you are attracting or repelling beings close to you, or repelling them away from you. And if you are looking for a soulmate and this deep connection, you are, and have to become aware, first and foremost, of this aspect of magnetism that you convey. For if you are simply looking to jump on Tinder and Bumble and find somebody for the evening, that's fine. But if you're looking to connect with that person that sees, that feels, that knows you beyond what, your quirks and weirdnesses, and maybe even some of your mental, emotional issues, then you must truly become a magnet for that person. And this brings us back to the first point that I made, which is your soul connection. Unless you make this connection with your soul first and foremost, it'll be tough for others to see it. So, when you make this connection, you are beginning to now really, truly become a magnet for attracting a soulmate, someone who sees beyond the surface of things. When you do not make this connection, you'll be easily affected by your emotions. So how do we become a magnet for what we want? This is something that has been spoken about for a long time by spiritual guides and spiritual teachers and mystics. And it's how we create reality. And you might already be familiar with the fact that you create reality by your thoughts and emotions. One aspect of it. And then the other aspect of it is the connection to your higher self. For the higher self is connected to cosmic wisdom. And in that wisdom, you can plug into your intuition, which is a powerful guiding force for you. Now, the way why thoughts and emotions are so powerful is because it is through our thoughts and emotions that we regulate how we plug into this intuition. Now, you might have met people in your life who didn't seem like the most logical or reasonable, like the most sane people in your life, and yet they seemed a bit crazy, but maybe they had a very interesting life. And somehow they learned to bypass these mental, emotional functions to plug into this higher self. Now, for others, this may be very tough. And part of your work is to really get to know yourself better, get to know your thoughts and emotions, and get to learn how you function in this world. And in some ways, it is not about fixing everything, for we can never fix truly our brains. There's too much happening there, too much programming that has happened to us unconsciously. But we can become aware of the biggest chunks of who we are, and how who we are now is attracting the people that we've attracted so far, and how to transform that. Obviously, one great aspect of this process is to plug into more what's most commonly known as positive feelings and positive emotions. But what happens in this, if you start to do this, and you're not really practicing holding a higher vibration to become a magnet for other higher vibrations, is that you entertain dark thoughts. And this frightens you sometimes, so you try to slurp them away and hush them under the rug and say, no, I'm a perfectly spiritual and positive person. And yet, you still have issues, and you're still struggling to attract certain people or keep certain people in your life. And what it is that you are not recognizing the darker aspects of you. Those aspects of you that are existing as powerful repellents for the things that you want, see? For we do have a light and a dark side. We are truly multifaceted beings because that is part of how we came and why we came to Earth. It was so we could have a spiritual awakening and a spiritual ascension. It was so we could experience certain aspects of this physical reality to achieve heightened levels and higher levels of consciousness. That is why our soul chose to come into this three-dimensional reality. But we have access to higher dimensions and we can transcend in these higher dimensions. Our thoughts and emotions are one major aspect of it. And why they're a major aspect to it is because we are in a physical reality. Even if you transcend to a much, much higher dimensional reality, a part of you is still plugged into the earth. At some point, you let go of this physical reality, you let go of this body. And part of why you're looking for a soulmate is because there is a physical aspect of you that has certain needs. So why it is important to begin becoming aware of like your thoughts and your feelings is because you want to be aware of your mental, physical, emotional needs. As you do, you'll see how they paint the types of mates that you pick. When you do, you'll understand that you're not always choosing intuitively and from a soulmate perspective. You are simply choosing from a human perspective, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in choosing for that human perspective, it's like choosing apples but expecting bananas. Choosing apples but expecting bananas. It can get very, very confusing, for you are the one reaching for it. And the way that we reach for it is through our thoughts and emotions, and then our spiritual and deeper connection to our soul self, which is why this is so important. Because see, that is what you are a magnet for. And the darker sides of you, the sides of you that you deny, become repellent for the people that you want. So as you integrate these sides of you, you become a magnet for that person who sees you fully, who sees all the multifaceted aspects of you. Now, one thing to understand is that when we recognize the darker aspects of us, it's not about now embracing them and just saying, well, I will live these dark aspects of me as I will live the light aspects of me. What it is, it's about what the darker aspects of us is like stagnant energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be moved. So one great way to integrate the darker aspects of you is to move now this energy, to move this energy in a way where it is shedding more light and making you a greater vibrational match for the people that you really want and are also great for you. Now, how about this apples and bananas? Here's a really, really important aspect that you must realize. Chances are you have ideas in your head of what your partner must look like, how much money they make, maybe where they live, or certain things you'd like about them, certain status or a certain level. Maybe you don't, but chances are you've made a list, especially if you've been struggling finding your soulmate, or you've met people in the past that you thought were your soulmate, but you didn't. So the most important thing is throw your lists away. You must really, 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 really make this jump. Throw the physical list away. Instead, what you must do, you must become, as I said, a magnet. And so you must now start to really feel, what would this relationship feel like? This is the third, but truly the most important aspect right now, is to really, if there's one thing you can walk away from this video, is how would it feel like to find a connection with someone? What would this relationship feel like? Chances are, if you've plugged into this, you will realize that you might not even have any idea of what this good relationship should feel like. But if you do, if you take the time, you'll realize that plugging to this emotion will unlock certain aspects of you, will unlock that deep connection with the soul that I was speaking about. As you unlock these deep aspects of you, and you really focus on how amazing this relationship would feel. And you can really, this is, if you're going to make a list, begin to make a list of what the relationship would feel like. But here's what's important. Don't get too specific. Sometimes you'll begin to make this list and you'll focus on the feeling, then you'll say, well, it would be so nice if the way they looked at me with their brown eyes or their blue eyes or their sparkling eyes or their beautiful eyes. I want you to really to let go of these specifics. Again, just simply focus on a feeling. And not just a feeling in an intellectual way. Plug now this feeling into your body. Because what happens is the way that the brain works is that when we are having certain thoughts, whether they are imagined or we're having experiences, and we are processing those experiences through thoughts and emotions, your body is releasing chemicals and certain neural pathways are happening. So because you have certain habits of being, you are always firing the same neural pathways. So let's say you have certain habits about what you think about finding a soulmate. Maybe there's already a train that you're on, that you always get on, and it's gotten you to always the same place. It may not be the place you want to get to. So now it's time to work and to start playing with your imagination and your feelings. So you play with your physical reality to begin shifting how you process how you process your experiences in a way that is now helping you not just rewire your brain, but become a better magnet for the people you want. So when you now imagine the feelings and allow those feelings to really sink in, this is really, really fun, especially because you are focusing on very positive, powerful feelings. So if, let's say, this love feels like excitement, security, attraction, all these things, really feel them into your body. As you embody these emotions, really, you start moving, as emotions are energy in motion. You begin to move this energy through your body. And chemicals are now being released and new neural pathways are being fired up in your brain. And you do this over and over and over. Your brain is now rewiring a new reality for you. This is very powerful because oftentimes when people speak of soulmates or processes of plugging into how certain things feel, they sound so bougie for many people. But there is actual science that backs this up. And the reason why it's important to mention the science aspect is because you could be missing out on making powerful transformations in your own frequency, in your own vibrational being, because you might not really understand how being a magnet works or being a vibrational being. Maybe you're taught from the school system to think in certain logical or what you might mistake for reasonable ways. What's most reasonable is you figuring out how you can live the best life possible. And that takes taking chances. So again, it's really important to plug into, most important, the general feeling of what would this relationship feel like. So begin to walk yourself. Don't get too specific again with details of what it looks like, what this person looks like, because when you really plug into this, the way it's going to happen and you meet this person that you like, for one, they might not really look like anything you expected. Maybe to some degree, obviously, there's a sense of physical attraction there. But it's going to feel somewhat logical. You're going to happen to be at the right place at the right time, and it will, in a sense, be very reasonable. It will make complete sense. But in a way, it will also be quite magical. So the reason why you also want to do this, because as I mentioned, you are a magnet. And you are a magnet by the thoughts and feelings that you reverberate. And when you do this, oftentimes we will fool ourselves with certain thoughts or ideas, and we think that because we are showing a certain mask to people around us that, that's who we are. However, though someone's logical mind might see the mask that you are wearing, in a deeply intuitive way, we are connecting with people through vibrations. So you cannot fool the universe. You cannot fool this greater source that is the source of everything, right? So you might fool people to some degree, you might fool yourself to some degree, but you are not fooling source. So it's very important to plug into the true higher vibrations of what it is to be a human in this physical reality by embracing those aspects of us that are, again, imperfect. And the way that we practice higher vibrations is by simply doing things like really plug into the feeling, the picture. And I don't mean just, again, the specific picture, though oftentimes you are taught to see this specific picture. Allow the feelings to really sink in, because that really is what also affects your biology to the point where you are transforming yourself into a magnet. Which brings me to the next point, and it is trust and allowing. This, you cannot do this, and you cannot find a soulmate if you do not trust and allow. Because when you do not have trust and allowance, you build up a lot of resistance. And it's like anything. If you, let's say you are trying to drive your car, but you keep throwing, bricks in front of your wheels, it's going to make driving much more difficult. Or if you're trying to drive your car, but you have the brakes on, well, it's going to be very tough to get your car going. And what brakes are and what resistance is all these negative associations that you might have, which again could be your feelings because your thoughts because you are an adult and you're a reasonable adult. And the other aspect of it could be simply your programming from when you were young and what you were taught about love. Maybe you saw your parents didn't have a good relationship, or maybe your parents split up, or you saw people around you, or maybe even now you're seeing people around you, and so you lose faith and you say, well, what is it? Now, there's an aspect of throwing away this work, of throwing away this neediness, because neediness also creates resistance. And what neediness is brings us back to the earlier points, which is when you're not connected to yourself and you're looking for the world around you to give you approval, to make you feel good, it will never be enough because the world around us is so deeply conditional. And unfortunately, so many of us were raised in very conditional ways. And so when we live like that, we end up meeting people who love us in a very conditional way. And again, we say we want to meet a soulmate because we want somebody to love us in unconditional ways. Though this is nearly impossible in this physical reality, for we are so conditional. It truly is impossible. It is possible for your soul. Your soul does love you unconditionally. And again, you are looking to connect with someone at a soul level where you see each other's souls and there is a level of unconditional love. When we connect to the greater aspect of us, our higher being, we also get a greater perspective. Because the soul is connected to the source, the inner being is connected to the greater source of all things. It also has the perspective of the greater source. When it does, all these other things like trust and allowance and lack of resistance come naturally because it is able to have a greater perspective. And everything is possible for source. Because we live in a conditional world, we were taught that we'll only get certain things if only certain conditions are met. And so we feel the same way with a soulmate. And of course, in the course of this video, I gave you a series of conditions, of processes that you must go through in a way to become more of a allowing being, a being that is trusting, a being that happens to be, quote unquote, at the right place at the right time. But really, it's very simple. As we practice this, and meditation is a wonderful way to begin listening to ourselves. And part of meditation is we begin listening to, sometimes if we have a lot of chatty thoughts and we have a lot of bad conditioning from abusive childhoods. Myself, I can attest, I had a very tough, physically, emotionally abusive childhood. So I was indeed gifted with many emotional issues. And so though I had a powerful, powerful connection to my soul, there were times when if I didn't take the time to be quiet, to allow, to be in nature, to truly plug in, all these thoughts and all these emotional issues would just clamor over. But as we practice meditation and mindfulness, you'll notice that you become a detached observer of yourself. And when you do this, there's a sense of initial fear because you think, well, this is what I've always identified with. I've always identified with the physical world. I've always identified with these thoughts and emotions. But as you let them go, you realize that you are now entered cosmic wisdom, the cosmos, your soul. You are now traveling with your soul instead of your physical body. This is when things like out-of-body experiences and astral travel and all these things are possible. They're very possible when we truly plug into source. We in a way lift off when we have that greater awareness. It is also at these times where you might even get a vision of your soulmate. And however, this is, so to speak, in a more advanced level. When you really allowed to trust, you will have a sense of deep, deep knowing. And when things happen and you meet people in the physical world, instead of being affected by your emotions, you'll be very calm and you will know when your soulmate has appeared. This sense of knowing is our intuition at work. It's one of the most powerful tools. And the way that we truly connect with it is by plugging into our higher being and trusting it more and more. It doesn't feel like fear. It doesn't feel like anxiety. And if you'd like more information on intuition, you can watch my video on intuition. But again, the most important connection, the most important and the first soulmate that you really need is a connection to your soul. And then from there, you can really find humans that you connect with at a soul level.